This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, it wasn't until 2017. I started this podcast in 2015, but it wasn't until 2017 that I had left New Brunswick for the first time when Lisa Langlois invited me to be her assistant at Horror-rama in Toronto, and I could not turn that down. And since then, I've been back to Toronto twice, and I'm looking forward to attending my third Horror-rama this fall, and it's perfectly placed in the weekend of November/December, so wonderful way to end the year. So, folks, yeah, I love Toronto. Toronto feels more like home to me than Fredericton, to be honest. But, folks, I got on the phone with me one of the founding members of Horror-rama, and I ran into him at Comic-Con as well. Yes, I got the head guy of Suspect Video. We have Luis Ceriz. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Yeah, no, that was perfect. Yeah, and thanks for all the good words.
I got to talk about your style, because every time I've seen you, you're always with that black top hat. Talk about that for a minute.
I've had it for ages, and, much like so many other people, I like to put on different set of clothes when I'm doing conventions, and it's very recognizable. I think it started when during Fan Expo we have a much bigger presence, like 3 booths and stuff, and I have other people helping me, and so it was really easy for them to direct questions to the guy in the top hat, as opposed to describing me in other maybe less flattering kind of ways, So, but I like the top hat. I've always liked wearing hats and wearing some interesting clothes and things like that. It just makes you more recognizable, and I like playing a little bit of dress up,
Yeah, I like it too. And, you notice that Chris Alexander's got his own little hat too.
He does, yeah. That's he should trademark that thing, because, it's so much of a part of what everyone thinks of as when they think of Chris.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I love Horror-rama, and it was such an honor to be Lisa's assistant when I first went there in 2017. It was my first trip on a plane. Love Porter Airlines.
Oh yeah, Porter's really good. It's really small, but very easy to get around with Porter.
Yes. Well, I know it got a heavy endorsement by Lynn Griffin and Sean Sullivan when I had them both on for the second time, and they really liked Porter. So I was nervous at first because I'd never flown before, and you hear all these horror stories, but it's like going in a bus in the air.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that are very wary of flying, but I'm not.
Yeah, and besides, I've been a fan of Lisa's since the 80s when I first saw Class of 1984 or so. When she asked me to be her assistant, I'm not going to say no.
No, she's great, isn't she?
I love her. She called me yesterday, actually.
Oh, did she?
Oh, yeah. She and I talk regularly, about once a week, and anytime she wants something promoted, she goes through me. And anytime I'm in Toronto, she and I hook up and do dinner and stuff like that, and just chat.
Wow, that's cool.
That is cool. It's a lot of fun, and she's become a friend, and it's pretty amazing. So it's nice to know some of these people on a personal level, whereas you hear so many horror stories in the media, because the media loves to highlight the negative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
for our guests, I mean, that was always a consideration of mine. Is like, you book guests and you always hope that they're going to be nice, and we've been lucky enough that we've had really good relationships with all the guests that we've had over the years, and even the people that you kind of hear rumblings about, they've always been really nice to us, and which kind of begs the question that I tend to think that people give what they get.
Yeah.
So if you treat them really nicely and are straightforward and open, then they'll do the same with you.
Yeah. But I love Horror-rama. I've been there twice for that, and I've been, of course, the Comic Con. Actually, it was Lisa that told me I should do Comic Con.
Oh yeah,
So
did you like that?
yeah, I did. I enjoyed it. I had about 7 bags of stuff I took home with me. I had to cram into 2 bags to bring home. But
Yeah.
and of course, I bought Graduation Day from you guys because I wanted to support you guys and I like what you guys do.
Oh,
So
thanks.
yeah, but it was nice to see you guys have a vendor there. So but I gotta say, as much as I liked Comic Con, I find that, and again, this is not the fault of the guests, but I find it's a lot more intimate with Horror-rama because I remember, for example, when I was at Lisa's table, assisting her at her table, there were times that I'd just sit and talk with Vernon Wells, and I would never have to interrupt any other fans or anything. It was just, or I could go and I could just say hello to Linnea Quigley or whatever, and just have a little conversation without interrupting anybody. You couldn't really do that at Comic Con.
No, no. Yeah, you can do that with smaller cons because there's less. I mean, it's more open with big conventions, which most people kind of think of when they think of comic conventions and things like Fan Expo, or in the States it's the San Diego Comic Con or New York Comic Con. They're just so large and there's so much money involved that the logistics are just that what they want is for the fans to show up, pay their money, and then make room for the next person. Like they're just there to generate money because there's so much money at stake. With the smaller shows, they're generally, I mean, much less money at stake, but also they're generally run by fans, not by accountants, basically.
Great.
And so to a large degree, I find that they're more intimate, just not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of just atmosphere, because everybody there is into the same stuff, and so there's much more of a family dynamic to that as opposed to a guest and attendee dynamic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I found with Comic Con there were 2 guests there that really stood out to me. I thought everybody was fine, but there were 2 that really stood out, that this wasn't just a money thing. You could tell that they really dug this. One was John Rhys Davies, who I thought was really, really great. In fact, when I had my picture taken with him after he signed my Raiders of the Lost Ark Blu-ray, he had he was tickling my side with his fingers trying to get me to laugh during the photos. And he would always ask fans what they did, like, what do you do? He'd like to get to know people. I really liked John Rhys Davies, and the other one was Corbin Benson, another guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that with them both. People were saying that is that they were really just friendly with people.
Yeah. Now I found, for example, and again, this is not really a complaint, like Tommy Flanagan, they only allowed you 1 autograph, so instead of a picture, I got him to sign my Blu-ray of The Game, which he was in briefly with Michael Douglas.
Oh,
but
yeah.
but with John Rhys Davies, I was able to get a picture signed and my Blu-ray of Raiders of the Lost Ark signed, so I like the fact there was no restraints there, so.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, with not to just our con, but smaller cons in general, is that you can have a conversation with a lot of the guests without feeling like you're in the way.
Yeah.
Is that you're not impeding them from doing something else, from making money off of the next person or stuff like that. Is that it's much more conversational, it's more laid back, it's and I think that because of that, it's not very often that I hear any negative stuff about the guests that show up at the smaller shows. When as a reverse of a lot of times with the bigger shows, I'll hear from people that X person was acting like a real asshole
Yep.
type thing, and I think that that's just because of the size of it, and you can get kind of overwhelmed like anybody, and so it's easier for them to have a bad day when they're just one of a number of people there, as opposed to with the smaller shows, there's fewer guests, but they're much more targeted, and so they're targeted because they know that hopefully the organizers will know that the people are interested in like what these people have done, what they have to say, and so I think they're appreciative of that too. So it's a really reciprocal kind of friendly atmosphere.
Yeah, I loved it. And I got to tell you, Horror-rama 2017 was my first convention, and I had such a blast. And
That's great.
oh yeah, and I went back again last year, and I'm looking forward. I'm going to get VIP for this fall. So
Awesome.
yeah, when are tickets going on sale?
They're going off pretty soon. We're going to have different tiers. Obviously, we're going to have tickets for each day individually, and then a weekend pass and VIP. But we're kind of toying with the idea of an extra special VIP. And right now, we're kind of working on what to include in that particular tier.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it'll happen pretty soon. I think.
Because
early May, I think.
okay. Because I'm going to get a VIP for sure.
Oh, excellent! Yeah,
I
you are a VIP.
I got a VIP both years, and I loved it last year. I showed up there with my VIP, and the woman that was putting the thing on my wrist, she goes, VIP!
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, we call it out. We yell it out.
I loved it. Yep.
Yeah, we're working on some really cool, interesting guests. We've signed a couple. I can't really say right now, but so far the people that we've signed have never done shows in. Well, one has never done a show, and one has never done a show. I don't think in Canada, maybe not in North America. I'm not sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Just like last year, I don't know. Chris has the gift of gab, and he's such a personable, kind of likable guy that he can talk people into doing shows that never even considered doing shows. Like last year, we had Louis Delgrand.
Oh yeah, I'm going to book him sometime here soon too. He was funny.
Oh my God, he was hilarious, and he was so friendly, and so he's never done a show ever. And I remember I was downstairs, and he had just gone down to get I think a coffee. It could have been a beer because we're licensed as well. And he was heading back upstairs, and he was sort of stopped by fans, and Chris was there, and someone said, I'm so glad that you did this show, because he's never done a convention ever. And he turned to this fan and said, I never do conventions. I've never done a convention, but this guy, and he pointed to Chris, and he said, this guy can talk anyone into doing anything. But yeah, I thought that was a total coup, because I think he was even surprised that people would be interested, because he hasn't really done horror films, but the one that he did do and the scene that he's in is just such an
Scanners.
iconic scene. Yeah, Scanners. His head blows up, and who doesn't know and love that if they're a horror fan?
And speaking of which, I've had Stephen Lack on from Scanners, and I'm still in touch with Stephen. He's located in New York someplace, so he might be somebody you guys might want to bring in, because I know I thought it was cool because his wife is from here in New Brunswick, and I thought that was so cool.
Oh, is she really?
Yeah, like he and I was just blown away. But Stephen's a great guy. He's into art now. He does a lot of drawings and stuff, and
yeah, he's a fine artist down there, and he's done galleries. And, yeah. Sadly, I haven't really looked up his stuff, but I've heard that it's quite good.
Well, I got him on Facebook, so he always posts pictures of drawings and paintings and stuff like that he's done. And he said Fredericton's always been really good to him. So at some point when he comes down here, he's going to let me know so I can get him to be my second signature on my Scanners Blu-ray.
Oh, that would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, when I met Louis Del Grande, I had contacted Stephen on Facebook that weekend when I was there at the event, and he had stated that Louis Del Grande was a great guy, and he talked him up. And when I went back the Sunday for the second day, I told Louis Del Grande, and I showed him the text that Stephen Lack had sent. And I put a little smile on his face. Yeah.
Yeah, you should definitely get Louis on. I was lucky enough to attend a bit of the panel, and our panels were videotaped. So at some point we're going to put them up on YouTube or on our page. But his Q&A was just so entertaining. He has
Yeah.
such amazing stories, and he's just a big kind of friendly storyteller. I thought he was terrific.
Yeah, I was just taken by his sense of humor.
Yeah, yeah.
And of
And
course,
yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to say is that with the smaller conventions, at least for ours, I can't kind of generalize with everybody, but with ours, it's funny that when we have our Q&As, they're not giant halls or anything like this. So for whatever reason, our guests are very open. They say things that I'm actually really surprised that they say. They'll talk about other people and their experiences in the industry with no kind of editing at all. And yeah, Vernon Wells was one of them. He was very open about all of his background and yeah, it's always fun to attend the Q&As.
yeah, Vernon was great. I had him on last June, and had a nice chat with him. And I know that Lisa had done a movie with him, so I took a picture of them together. But it was fun sitting there by Lisa and then reminiscing every now and again with Vernon. 'Cause, yeah, I had to ask him about Mad Max Fury Road and what would it be like if his character met Ferosa, the Charlize Theron character.
I know it's still such a kick to me when we get some of these people and I'm standing next to them and I'm chatting with them. I mean, when Road Warrior came out, I absolutely loved Road Warrior. I was obsessed with Road Warrior, and so to have Wes right there, who's much taller than I thought he was going to be, but to have him like right in front of me and to be able to like chat a little bit was just such a kick to me.
Yeah, well, I've interviewed Francine Locke, who was in Risky Business in that opening shower scene, and she had she had done a movie with Vernon Wells, and she did not know who he was until she had mentioned to her husband that she could do this movie with Vernon Wells, and he was like psyched, and they watched like Commando and stuff like that, Road Warrior, and he always played these villains, but she was just taken by the fact that this guy was really kind.
Yeah, he was. Like at his Q&A, he finished it at ours by basically blessing everyone that attended with a Buddhist prayer, because I understand he's a Buddhist now, and so that was a real treat to be blessed by Wes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got to talk about Chris Alexander for a moment, because you and he are kind of the ones behind this. And I've read a little bit on this, but for those that don't know, give us the background of how you two come to meet and how you guys came to form Horror-rama.
Sure, yeah. We were actually attending another convention in Ontario, in London, Ontario, called Shockstock, and this was, I guess, back in, it must be maybe 2014, I'd say.
Okay.
And I knew his stuff, and I guess he'd come into the store a bunch of times, and so I introduced myself, and he said, "Oh yeah, no, I know who you are," and I said, "I know who you are," and I essentially said, because he was the editor of Fangoria at the time, and I asked him, I heard some rumblings that Fangoria was going to do a convention up here, because they had done it back in, I believe, 1991. It could have been 1990, and it was the only convention that they had here. And it was just prior to when we opened Suspect. And so I mentioned that to him, and he said, no, Fangoria's not doing one here. And I said, oh, that's too bad, because there's nothing like that up here, at least not in Toronto. Shockstock's more of an exploitation type thing, and it's a great convention as well. But it's not in Toronto, and their focus is a little different than pure just horror.
Mm-hmm.
And so I left it at that, and then I went back to my booth, and he came over and he said, I'd really like to see a horror convention in Toronto. And I said, yeah, me too. I would love to see one. And essentially that was the germ of it. And we just turned to each other and said, do you want to do it? And I said, yeah, I think we can do it. And much like many things that actually come to pass, we entered into it not knowing anything, right? Like we just, I just thought, okay, well, how hard can it be? I've done enough shows that I can sit back and just logically look at all the steps that have to be taken. And we were really excited, and we have no money. Everything's put on credit cards, basically. But we went ahead, and he had a lot of contacts, and I knew a lot of exhibitors. So between the two of us, we put together the first one, which is a smaller. It was in a smaller space, but we had some great guests there. Like Tom Savini was there, and Barbara McNulty from Opera. Or from Suspiria, I should say.
I would love to get her on my show. I've had two guests from Suspiria. I've had Jessica Harper, and I've had Stefania Cassini.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, Stefania was my first interview out of Rome, Italy. I had her on Skype.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and Jessica, it took me 2 years to nail her down. She agreed all along to do an interview, but her schedules didn't match, but I eventually got her on, and it was so awesome to have Jessica Harper come on the show. But I would love to get Barbara on the show here eventually.
Yeah.
So,
well, Barbara's really nice, but her English is very, very spotty.
Okay.
So it's difficult to, unless you know Italian, in which case there'd be absolutely no problem. But yeah, I got a chance to sit down and speak to her, but a lot of it was broken. But she was a super nice person, and I hope at some point we'll have her back. But we also had like Lisa Marie, and we had who else? Leslie Donaldson, who you know.
Yeah, I've had Leslie on twice. Yep.
Yeah, and Barbie Wilde, and yeah.
Oh, and you had Mary Beth Rubens from Prom Night. I've had Paul Lynch, the director, Prom Night on twice. So.
Oh, have you?
Yeah. He did a movie here in Fredericton with Bo Derek back in 2000. So he loved Fredericton, and he and I had a nice chat. He's been on, both times I had him on, he was on for 2 hours. So, I mean, he shared some stories, and he came back on last year because Prom Night was getting a special screening in L.A., and he, I guess it was a special Blu-ray release or something. So Paul Lynch was just great, so...
oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking at this list. You had Leslie Donaldson, who's been on my show twice. And Lynn Griffin, of course. I've had her on twice as well. She's married to Sean Sullivan, who was the drunk guy in Wayne's World.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, whenever I was there, the time with Lisa, that when I was her assistant, Lynn and Sean were in Columbus, Ohio, doing a convention there. I think it was Horror Hound, and they had contacted Lisa, and they wanted to know when I was leaving.
Wow.
Because they wanted, they wanted to meet me, which I was honored. So we all met at the Starving Artists restaurant, which I loved that restaurant.
I've never been to that show, or in fact there at all.
What's that?
I haven't been to Horror Hound.
I haven't either, but apparently there was a lot of people I interviewed there, but Lynn Griffin and Sean Sullivan, they were back before I left Toronto, so we all met and had a nice meal together. And Lynn Griffin had some pictures signed for me, and Sean, they signed some Blu-rays, and I had some stuff there for Sean to sign as well. So it was a wonderful meeting. So
that sounds like a a great evening, a great day.
Yeah, Lynn Griffin apparently likes to bring a plastic bag to these conventions
She does, yeah.
from
Yeah,
Black
she did
Christmas.
that. She did that with us too. Yeah, it was the first time that I'd seen her do that, and I thought that's pretty hilarious, and you know,
Now, I would
I
love
thought
to
it was
get
really
Tom
cool.
Savini eventually on my show, and I'm working on that through somebody else because I know Tom's getting a book out. And
Oh yeah,
Lisa Marie, I wouldn't mind getting Lisa Marie on the show as well. I'm actually surprised you guys got her.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, she was a friend. She was friends or is friends with Barbara Steele, and Barbara Steele was supposed to be at the first one, but she couldn't make it. And at the time that we were speaking with Barbara, she mentioned that she would like her friend to come up with her, and that happened to be Lisa Marie. And we said absolutely. But when Barbara couldn't come, thankfully Lisa came up anyway. So
Oh, that's great. What was she
yeah,
like?
she's very nice, very um, proper. She's very soft spoken,
Mm-hmm.
and she has great posture, which is
Wow.
a strange thing to say, but she's very upright. You know, like the way that the character of the Martian Queen was. You know how
Yep.
she's very stiff and very posture conscious.
Mm-hmm.
That's how Lisa was, but she was very nice as well. Like super easy to talk to, and what's great about her being very soft spoken is that she was very open if you were speaking to her, to have you sit next to her and chat with her. So that was kind of a thrill, sitting next to Lisa Marie and just having this seemingly intimate conversation with her, you know?
Yeah. Well, sadly, we just not too long ago lost Barbara Steele.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, she was in Silent Scream.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Stuck in an attic.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But actually, I got to ask you before we talk more about Horror-rama is Suspect Video. I want you to plug that a little bit. Tell us about that and what makes it different.
What makes it different in terms of the region, at the very least, is that we're Toronto's only all horror convention.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other ones, and unlike many other of the other conventions in Ontario, we are licensed with a local craft brewery that's going to be making a very special Horror-rama brew for us,
Okay.
which is really fun. Like we were chatting earlier, we're a more intimate convention, so you can actually sit and chat with people. And we have some great exhibitors, like a lot of stuff that you're never going to see. And if you do, it'll only be online, but there's no substitution for actually chatting with the people that sell these things, that make these things. We have some great artisans and artists that are displaying their stuff. And we have an after party generally. Most years, I think last year we didn't have it. We had a special screening of Return of the Living Dead with Linnea in attendance instead. So yeah, and it's the venue itself is unlike any other convention venue you're going to come to. It's the converted Buddhist temple. Yeah, it's I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
The Q&As are intimate as well as we were talking about before. So you'll get people who are maybe their defenses are a little bit low, so they'll tell you things that you won't read in magazines about the industry and about their life and everything. And the guests, we generally try with Horror-rama to have a nice Canadian-centric guest list, because a lot of these people have contributed to not only Canadian cinema but horror cinema in general, and they're really unheralded, and
Yes.
and they shouldn't be, because I mean, you know, they've either made or been in some great iconic horror films, and they should be recognized as such. So we'll get people that, in some cases, as we said before as well, that have never done a convention, as well as cult actors that probably don't get approached a whole lot by larger conventions because their appeal, the larger conventions think, are quite niche. But they're people that we find really interesting, and yeah, it's a rare event that you get these people together where you can actually chat with them in an atmosphere of everyone who's there, whether it's exhibitors, guests, or attendees, are all into the same thing, which is horror.
It's interesting because obviously that first Horror-rama was successful enough that you had followed it up again in 2015 with another guest list. So how big was that first one, and did it do better than you and Chris expected?
We weren't sure. The first one was successful. Yeah, we really didn't know what to expect. I mean, not successful in terms of money. I mean, conventions, despite what people think, are not money makers really. But it was successful in terms of, all the guests had a lot of fun, the exhibitors did well, and the attendees really liked it. And that was all that we were really hoping for. And we followed it up with the second one because we had a great time. But plus, we also thought, genuinely, that something like this needed to happen.
Yes.
In Toronto, I mean, obviously, we hope that it just gets bigger and better, and it would afford us opportunity to get people that are maybe guests that are overseas or in Asia or something. That was our ultimate goal, is that it does well enough that we are not restricted monetarily by who we can get.
Well, I've had some guests on here that's never done a convention in Canada, like Alan Ford, who of course was Bricktop and Snatch. He was also in American Werewolf in London and Venom. He's never done a convention here before.
Never, eh?
No, and he's in London.
Huh.
Yep. But I mean, he would be a catch.
Yeah.
Yep. And Cindy Morgan, who of course was in Caddyshack and Tron, she was also in The Midnight Hour. She's never done a convention in Canada.
Really?
Yeah.
And where is she out of?
She is in Florida, I think.
Ah.
Yep. And Cindy actually asked, he said, can you make it happen? And this was 2015 when I interviewed her, but, they were in horror stuff, so, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just that dictates who comes, but also, I mean, obviously it's, where they are, what their schedules are like, because many people's schedules, don't really mesh up. Whether they're available for different reasons, either they're shooting something, or they're just not available, or they're just not interested this particular year. And we get a lot of names that, frankly, many of them are great names of people sent our way, which we appreciate. It tells us that people are interested and want to contribute, right?
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed all of our guests so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in 2015, you had a great guest list. You have Michael Berryman, Cheryl Curry, Eugene Clark, Sybil Danning, Mick Garris, Linnea Quigley in there for the first time, Debbie Rochon. You had some good people.
Oh, yeah, some great people, yeah. Yeah, Mick Garris was super, super nice, and he didn't charge anything for his autograph.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, it was all free, yeah, which was, I thought, was really surprising. And I told him that. I said, wow, that's really nice of you. And he said, he's the most affable, friendly guy you're ever going to meet. He said, I'm doing all right. And if a fan shows up at a show and they have, $40 and they're trying to decide who to get an autograph from, have them, buy an autograph off of these other guests. I'll just sign for free. I'm doing okay.
I got that same, obviously, I'm friends with Lisa Langlois, but she did something I'd never seen before either. If somebody, for example, had a disability or something, Lisa would always give them a reduced fee.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, Lisa was very compassionate.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
she was great. Like I really got along well with Lisa. I think she's a great woman.
I love Lisa. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and yeah,
yeah,
the following year in 2016, we had William Lustig, who of course was the producer and director of
Maniac.
Maniac and a bunch of other stuff. He owns Blue Underground, and he also gave away his autographs for free.
I would like to get William Lustig on my show too, because
Oh yeah, he was really open and super friendly as well. Many times, it's funny, many times I don't really get a chance to sit down and chat with these people until, you know, in the offhand. Sometimes we don't have people and schedules don't mesh of bringing some of the guests to the airport when they're done the convention, and so I'll volunteer, and in those cases I get to sit in my car, drive personality to the airport, and chat for half an hour.
who have you
with,
drove? Who have you driven to the airport?
I drove Mick Garris and William Lustig, and I was gonna drive Diane Thorne, but she'd gotten her own taxi at that point, and she was so nice. Her and her husband. It's funny to think of Ilsa as being very, you know, very much like the really sweet aunt, but she really was. She was great. Yeah.
Could you imagine, though, like William Lustig did Maniac? Could you imagine if Joe Spinell was still alive? What a catch he would be at one of these.
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. No, I would love to get William Lustig on here. The only one I've had on from Maniac is Caroline Munro, who was wonderful to get on the show, and I got her through the Ray Harryhausen Foundation when I did a couple tributes to Ray Harryhausen in honor of Clash of the Titans 35th anniversary.
Oh wow!
And I guess Caroline is connected with the foundation because she was in the Golden Voyage of Sinbad. So I had a nice chat with Caroline.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. And she, of course, would be a good catch for one of these, too. Of course, she's overseas, but...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, but in 2016, you had Helene Addy from Incubus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Incubus also had Erin Noble, who was in class of 1984. Now, she's Toronto-based.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. I've had Erin on as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a couple from the Brood on. I haven't interviewed anybody from the Brood, but Cindy Hines
and Cindy, a little mini Brood reunion, and I mean the Brood is, I love the Brood.
Yep.
I think it's terrific. So it was really fun to have them, and they were again super nice, and we had Jeff Lieberman, who's a real character. He's the director of Squirm and some other films. And
did he make you squirm?
No, but he and William Lustig they did a panel together, and it was hilarious. They were just they could have gone on the road as an odd couple type of thing, where William is such a veteran and super nice and very kind of careful with what he says. He won't say anything bad about people. Jeff is just very
Jim Wynorski will.
yeah, that's true. But Jeff is very much kind of like says it like it is. So some of the answers that they provided were pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking right now on the Horror-rama webpage. I like the About Us section where it has 2014 experiences and so on. You guys have got to put the 2018 in there.
Yeah, we've been remiss with the website, but that's being changed.
I like the fact you got the past ones on there because it's nice to look back.
Yeah. The one regret that I've had over the years is that we haven't videotaped the Q&As, because we could have a pretty big library of really interesting panel discussions and things, but it's really too bad. But we did videotape me and Chris singing Happy Birthday to Tom Savini during our first one, which he was quite surprised about. But
did you guys jump out of a cake for him?
No, but we got a cake for him, and we just I think we surprised him in the middle of the floor and walked towards him and started singing. And of course, we're not the best singers, so but it was a fun moment.
Well, I noticed on your 2017 guests on the webpage, you guys don't have Allison or Ashley C. Williams listed here.
No. Oh, no?
No.
She's not there? Oh, okay. She's on the poster.
Yeah, you guys put her in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll get people literally at the very last minute, and then we don't get a chance to put them on the poster, unfortunately, because...
Oh, she was on the poster, but I'm talking about when you go on the website and it says About Us, and it goes down, you have the experiences.
Uh-oh.
And if you click 2017 experience, Ashley C. Williams is not listed.
Oh, we better change that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Over the years, we've thrown names back and forth, and it's always heartbreaking when a name that we were planning on getting really soon dies.
What?
We were really planning on getting Larry Cohen this year, or approaching him to be on it, and he passed away.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, we were thinking we really wanted to get Basil Gogos at the show, but then he passed away, and it's like a bit of a curse of...
It's funny, because I just heard that we lost Eric Harada, who was in Rosemary's Baby. I was lucky enough to have him on my show back in November.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You did?
Was
that recent?
Yeah, just passed away.
Oh, too bad.
I was lucky enough to. I had Dick Miller on last August, and he just passed away in January, so I was very lucky with both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, 2017, that was the year I first attended. And I especially wanted to say a nice shout-out thank you to Lisa Langlois for... she's got a lot of faith in my podcast, and she was my Toronto eyes, and got me out of my comfort zone here. And I consider Toronto more like home. I just love it. But
oh yeah.
Did
you get a chance to chat with Leslie Donaldson as well?
Twice. I've had her on my show twice. Yeah.
Oh, have you? Yeah, she's great, and they're great together.
Yeah. Yeah, I always liked Leslie. My favorite of her movies was Curtains.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What a strange movie that is.
Yeah. And Lisa, of course, is Class of 1984, and I've interviewed 5 different people from Class of 1984. I've had her on twice. Stefan Arngrim's been on my show 3 times, and he's somebody you guys might want to reach out to.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's East Coast. I've had Mary Lynn Ross on, who, of course, played the wife, and she's in L.A., and Aaron Noble, of course, is East Coast. And, of course, I had Gord Lewis on from Teenage Head. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I know Lisa is trying to get me connected with Joseph Kell, who, of course, was the guy on the flagpole.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he's in L.A., though, now, but no, I've had Lisa and Leslie on twice. Ming Stoll, I met her. It was great to attend Pink Flamingos at that screening. Lisa had never seen it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we had a nice discussion. She said, not my kind of movie, but she said it was nice to see how young Mink Stoll was in the movie. But I'll say this, when I couldn't seem to make a connection with Mink to get her on my show, I do a lot of tribute interviews if somebody's passed away. And so I had Max Mueller come on to do tribute to his mom, who, of course, was Cookie Mueller.
Oh, yeah.
And here's a little trivia for you. Max was the baby that was sold to the lesbian couple in the movie.
Is that right?
Yeah, he has a chuckle over that now.
Hilarious.
Although watching his mom get ravaged by a chicken was not exactly. But I've had Alfred Hitchcock's granddaughter come on my show, and Audrey Hepburn's eldest sons come on, and Roddy Piper's son and daughters come on. I like doing stuff like that because it allows me to make them part of my show.
That's terrific.
But out of that 2017 guest list, like besides Lisa and Leslie, Vernon Wells has come on, and he was really nice. John Harrison was on, and he signed his Effects Blu-ray when I went and met him, and Carl Zitier, he's come on the show, and Ryan Brown just came on just this past March, and had a nice chat with him.
Wow.
Yeah. It was nice to see Ryan Brown back too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the magician. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. His close magic is just fantastic.
I took some pictures of his magic act, and of course I'm still reaching out to people to get on the show for this year, and I've already had Dee Wallace on, so that was cool, and I'm going to try to reach out and get her on again, but Dee remembered me, which was awesome.
Did she?
Yeah. Well, she did a movie up here, too, called Killing Ruth, the Snuff Dialogues as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, Dee Wallace said you got a lot of positive feedback on that interview, so I was happy to hear that.
Oh, that is nice to hear.
Mm-hmm. Linnea Quigley, I'm working on. I know she said she'd do the show.
Yeah, she would be a great interview, actually.
Yep. And I'm going to reach out to Louis Del Grante and Lynn Lowry. I know she wants to do the show, but right now I think she's doing a book, so her publisher wants her to kind of restrain from interviews right now.
Oh, is that right?
Yep. But I would love to get her on. I know she's a great hugger. I went and saw her both days there, and she gives a nice hug picture.
Yeah, she was really, really nice, and she was pretty happy with the show too, and yeah.
Yeah, she told me it was her favorite convention that she had done last year, so.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yep. So, I'm hoping to eventually get her on. Now, it says here that David Naughton was supposed to come on and he postponed. Any chance of him coming on?
I don't know. We're asking him, so hopefully he will. That was bad news when we got it, because of course we, like you said, we had Dee Wallace, and we really wanted to have a werewolf versus werewolf type of theme to the show, but alas, we couldn't do it.
Well, if you can't get him, a lot of people love Jenna Agata, if you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Boy, she was, she's an icon from my movie-going experiences when I was an early, a late teen, early 20 person.
Yep. But
between that and Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
Logan's Run, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Logan's Run. Yep. No, I enjoyed doing Horror-rama, and I'm going to tell you one thing that also stands out to me with Horror-rama is some of the movies I've seen there. I don't go to the shorts because I'm not much into shorts, but I do go to the feature lengths.
Oh,
and yeah, because they're what I review. And I know the first year I was there, I saw Effects, which John Harrison was in. It had Tom Savini, very low budget, and I grabbed the Blu-ray and got John to sign it. And when I first saw it, it didn't hit me all that well. And watching it since, it's like I got a nice memory of this movie at that screening room. And I also saw Brain Damage for the first time too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, we have some really cool plans this year for the screening room, but I can't really kind of reveal it. But it's some pretty cool old school kind of ideas going towards it. But yeah.
And then last year I saw. I remember talking to Chris Alexander about this. I went and I saw Wild Beasts. And Chris Alexander pokes his head in and says, "Has the cheetah scene happened yet?" That film, the lead actor in it is so bad. I actually bought the Blu-ray at Horror-rama because I wanted to show it to my brother. I said, "You got to check out the lead actor in this." Yeah. The animals all looks tame. Like these close-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. God.
And then, of course, I saw Absurd, which was really, really graphic. But I enjoyed it. I got the Blu-ray of that, too. The only thing that really bothered me in it is that stupid kid in it. I could not stand that kid.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow. Like,
Yeah.
have you seen Absurd?
I have, yeah.
He's sitting there pounding on this door, and this poor girl is bedridden, trying to get out. It's like, and this poor nurse getting her head shoved in an oven, and she's struggling to survive. And this kid, I'm like, just oh my goodness, you want to talk about annoying kids?
Yeah, I think he was supposed to be, but he certainly played his role really really well.
Oh.
A lot of people comment about that kid.
Oh, I could not stand that kid. Although one of the saving graces for me with that movie is the fact that the heroine was A, bedridden, and B, was resourceful because she had to find a way to survive, and she was smart. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the movies that we screened last year, we were the major sponsor that we had was Severin Entertainment, and so there were a lot of Severin films there, and they have some crazy titles in their library. I will say that.
One of my favorites is Miss 45. Of course, you know that. I've done 4 tributes on Zoe Tamerlis Lund with her widow Robert Lund coming on 4 times. I've heard a lot about that woman, and I wish she was still with us because Miss 45, of course, is a favorite of mine.
Yeah, Miss 45 is great.
Yeah.
It's a great film. I'd love to have the director on, but he's a bit of a wild card, I've heard.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And, of course, other ones I like. I love De Palma's Dress to Kill. I would love to get an interview from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Is amazing.
I love Dress to Kill. And last year, one of my misses, and I tried hard for its 40th anniversary, I tried to get somebody from John Carpenter's Halloween. I've been told that PJ Souls is a good catch for an interview, but a lot of people that get her on their podcast meet her at conventions.
Right.
Yep. And I'd love to get PJ Souls, but I'm going to tell you some, if you guys can ever get her. But I'll tell you one person you might want to try to get, and she has done a convention up here, but she'd be a good catch for Horror-rama, would be Sandy Johnson, who played the original Judith Myers. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
She just kind of came out of the woodwork, and here was my story about her. I found out who was representing her on Facebook, and I approached them to get her on my show for the 40th anniversary of Halloween. They made it sound like it was going to happen, and then they told me to reach out at such and such a time. I reached out, and they said that she did a magazine interview, and I could read that and find out everything. And I was like, thanks for wasting my time. I was so pissed at them. It's like going to a cafeteria and being told to eat off somebody else's plate. I thought that was just disgustingly rude. Like, what does her interview with this magazine have to do with me interviewing her,
I don't know.
So
obviously they didn't really understand what you wanted, or they just, I don't know, didn't care.
Yeah, but she'd be definitely a good idea. And another thing is, too, look at some of the anniversaries, because Texas Chainsaw Massacre is celebrating 45 years this year. And I know that I had John Dugan and Terry McMinn on here, and I know I know they're doing their rounds with Ed Neal and whoever else is around from that, and they'd be a catch for Horror-rama. I believe they're Texas-based.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yep. Terry McMinn said she'd love to hang with me and put a picture of her on the hook. And, of course, Black Christmas celebrating 45 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Nick Mancuso might be somebody you might want to try to get.
Yeah, that would be a good name.
Yeah, I've had him on the show. And, of course, A Nightmare on Elm Street celebrating 35 years. and the initiation. You get some heavy hitters celebrating anniversaries. So yeah. So
I know there's so many great names out there. Yeah.
I know that we've talked about some people that were difficult to get. Like, I know there's some people that some people love the conventions and some people are kind of off with it. Jessica Harper, I'm so happy to get on the show. She's not always comfortable doing conventions, and I know you've told me the story about her and maybe who's Swan? Why am I?
That's Paul Williams.
Paul Williams, that's right. I was thinking of Williams. Paul Williams. And Paul Williams just didn't want to travel up here?
No, he never ruled it out. He just, I think his schedule is such that it's hard for him to, either it's really hard for him to plan in advance or too far in advance, or he was just kind of, didn't want to say no. But we've approached him a few times, and he would be great. I mean, Phantom of the Paradise is one of my favorite movies,
and it's celebrating 45 years this year.
Yeah, but he would be so cool.
Well, if getting him up here means you can get Jessica Harper, you might want to try that. Try one more time this year, see if it'll happen. Yeah,
we try so many names, you wouldn't believe it.
Yep, and yeah. Is there, I don't know if you want to talk about people that's turned you guys down, but is there anybody notable you guys wanted to get that ended up being a no-show?
That didn't show up?
Not necessarily didn't show up, but just didn't want to do just didn't want to come. But just flat out...
Really, generally they won't do it because of scheduling problems. Usually, that's usually the problem. Or we've been approached by people to come up, but by then, we're just full because we only have so much space for guests as well. And I don't want to, cram in people and have them be uncomfortable. Like that. That would be that. It wouldn't be good for us, and it wouldn't be good for them either.
No.
So, but no, generally, people are pretty good. They're open in terms of what their schedules call for, and some people just will it'll just be it's out of our budget with some people. Like people will say, oh, well, why don't you get Robert Englund and things? And number one, he does a lot of shows. He does the big shows, but he's constantly doing conventions. So it's not that we would want him. It's just that it wouldn't be all that special. You know what I mean? Like we generally like to focus on people that are overlooked, we feel, or that have never done overlooked in terms of they don't think that the interest is there, or they just don't do a lot of shows, or they haven't done any shows up here, So when we get a lot of like really big names, those are the reasons why we probably wouldn't really want to do them, especially if they do a lot of shows to begin with, because there's no real point. You know what I mean? Like when a big show announces a celebrity that's done the show maybe 3-4 times before, the specialness is greatly reduced.
Yeah, well, Bruce Campbell does a lot of them as well.
Yeah, and we occasionally will get people saying, well, why don't you get Bruce Campbell? It's like, well, because you can see him at this show, this show, this show, and this show,
Well, I'm going to tell you, I know you mentioned one of the reasons that last year's Horror-rama did so well is because you had fewer guests, but I think you played it really smart because you had Dee Wallace and Linnea Quigley, who are two very recognizable names that would bring a lot of people in. And then you had people that weren't as recognizable, but fans of horror films in particular would know who they are, like Lynn Laurie, Charles Band, Louis Del Grande. You have people like that. And I think that's smart planning to do it that way.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, it's good that you mentioned band because, I mean, the year before we had Carl Zitterer.
Yeah, I had him on. I liked him.
And John Harrison. And we always try to have a composer, or we try to have somebody represent the musical aspect of it. Like we try to have a broad range of people. We always try to have artists. We try and have someone from the musical side. We try and have, last year I don't think we did, but a lot of times we'll have an author as well.
I got a couple suggestions for you.
Mm-hmm.
For music, I would suggest Pino Donaggio.
Okay.
He did Dress to Kill, and he did Carrie and stuff like that.
Interesting.
And he did The Howling in terms of scoring.
Right.
Yep. He'd be somebody I'd recommend. I don't know how many conventions he does.
Yeah.
Yep. In terms of author, Mike Aloisi did a big book on Kane Hodder, and he's involved in the one with Tom Savini. He might be somebody to bring on as well. He's been involved in the comic scene.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have a few people we're working on. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to be unveiled, because I love the fact that Horror-rama is coming back, because I was a little nervous about that, because I had approached Chris Alexander to get him on my show, because Lisa told me I need to get Chris on. And so... and
he does speak very well, actually.
What's that?
Chris does speak very well. He has lots of stories, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell me, out of the years you've done Horror-rama, what's the most interesting story you could tell me about your experience? Or some of your more interesting stories? Well,
the singing "Happy Birthday" to Tom Savini is certainly one. I thought that was really fun. I really liked the actually two after party concerts were really special. One was with Cherie Curry,
okay,
from the Runaways, and she performed a few Runaway songs in a small little club for us. That was our Horror-rama after party, and that was really pretty special because it was just such a small space, and it was really cool. And Mink Stoll performed the year that she was at the show.
Oh, I got a story for that.
Oh yeah,
you just reminded me of something. I gotta bring this up. I went to that with Lisa. I connected with Lisa, and before the Pink Flamingos screening, we went across the road and went to a nice pasta restaurant, Italian restaurant, and we chatted and reminisced, and we went to the after party where Mink Stoll and Carl Zittier was there on stage, and they had, of course, the guy get up dressed like Divine from Pink Flamingos. Mm-hmm. And if you recall, he was singing the song Lollipop.
Yeah.
And he pulled this little stuffed tampon out of his crotch area.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
And he whirled it above his head, and it sailed across the room, and it hit me in the arm, and it dropped to my feet, and I just kind of looked at it there. And I look up, and everybody's staring at me. So I'm like, I guess I'm supposed to pick this up. Of course, it was just a stuffed toy, Oh, yeah. So I reached down, and I picked it up by the string, and Lisa Langlois, I thought, was going to fall off her stool laughing. She and I went to get something to eat afterwards, and she laughed on the subway. She could hardly contain herself at the restaurant. And we sat and joked about it. Like I was saying, who's stalking him? I go put this out for Christmas, or maybe I should give this to the cat. It was one of the joys was hearing her laugh, and she just lost it, and she still asks me about that to this day. Asked me if I still have it, and I still do. And I remember, I don't know whether it was Mink Stoll or Leslie Donaldson, but one of them combined me and said, "You're not in Fredericton anymore." That was my story from that.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, at the same performance, I was at a table, and I'm checking my cell phone because you have to be available all the time. And I think there was a couple of burlesque dancers before they went on, and I guess a pasty was taken off the breast of one and hurled into the audience, and of course fell literally right on my cell phone, and everyone kind of looked at me. I looked up. I didn't know what was going on.
It was a new form of text message.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Yeah, that was my story there, and that was the first time I've ever been to a strip bar either. I didn't know you could take pictures in there, but
Yeah, it was fun.
yeah, that was a lot of fun, and but
Yeah, and I think Mink Stoll started out the performance by saying, "Okay, I don't want anyone to audio tape this thing because not because I'm shy or anything, but because we haven't rehearsed and I'm going to sound like crap. So no audio taping."
yeah, that is funny.
That is, yeah.
So that was a good memory for me, and so
Yeah.
yeah.
Another really cool memory was when I picked up William Lustig. I got in, he sat down, and I told him I'm Louis, I'm one of the organizers. And we're chatting, and he said, "What else do you do?" And I said, I run this video store in Toronto. He said, "Oh, what's the name of it?" And I said, Suspect Video. And he turned to me, and he looked at me, and he said, "Dude, you're famous."
Oh wow!
I thought, "Oh my God, William Lustig thinks I'm famous." I said, "Hardly." He said, "No, I had a meeting with, one of the video distributors up here, and they kept mentioning you." And I was like, "Oh man, talk about a swelled head. I like that a lot too."
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was really fun.
We need to talk about Chris Alexander's movies because I've never seen any, but I noticed on the Horror-rama Facebook page they had Queen of Blood. How many movies has he done?
I should know this. I think it's 4. He'll kill me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 4. And I like them.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not for everyone's taste. But they're much more. And he'll tell you once you get them on, but they're less narrative driven and more.
I just saw the beach bum. I just saw the beach bum, so I know about not narrative driven.
Yeah. He's much more interested in the visual aspect and the tone of a movie as opposed to the the narrative aspect of it. Like you said many times, he's much more interested in the dream aspect. And I think that influence is largely due to Italian horror films, which initially, when I was a kid, I didn't like Italian horror films at all because they didn't make a whole lot of sense. But I've come to appreciate them over the years because they don't make a lot of sense, because they much more rely on the immediate feeling as opposed to, the logic behind things. And so in that way, they're much more dream-like. It's like you're attaining a dream state. And it's because of that, Chris's films are people would consider like slower moving, make sense. But if you're in a particular mood and if you're open to that kind of experience, I think they're quite good. But of course, if you go on to IMDb and kind of see reaction, you'll see a lot of negative aspects or a lot of negative reviews of his movies, but that's because people are maybe expecting something different, especially from the editor of Fangoria. They expect a lot of gore and a lot of,
Has he?
That, which is not what they get.
Okay, so I haven't seen any of his movies. So has he had any of the Horror-rama guests on, or any notable people in his movies?
He had, I think, the only person he's had. That would be known by a lot of people is Nevik Ogre from Skinny Puppy.
I don't know him that movie.
It's Skinny Puppy's a band, more of kind of like an electronic industrial band from Vancouver, and I like their stuff quite a bit. But that would be the only person, I believe.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, I now have an IMDb page, and I'm no actor, but I had Debbie Sue Voorhees on my show 3 times. And because Friday the 13th is going through a lawsuit between Sean S. Cunningham and Victor Miller. I've had Victor Miller on here. What a nice guy. And because of that, that's why there's no more Friday the 13th movies being made. And I guess after Jason X, they might want to rethink a few things. But I call that the room of the Friday films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. It took me forever to see Jason X, and I was at a convention, and we were chatting about it, and someone described the plot of it, and I thought the plot sounds really interesting, actually. And it just so happened, I mean, talk about kismet, is I went back to the hotel room and flipping around stations, and Jason X was on. It was unbelievable. So I watched it, and it is it's atrocious. I mean, it's just terrible.
It's the worst one, I think.
It's just so cheap looking, so poorly thought out, and yet when you hear the basic plot line, I would argue that you would probably hear it and think, that sounds kind of interesting. I bet they, hopefully they did something really cool to it. So I don't know. I'd almost argue that someone could remake it, make it into a really interesting film, but that sure wasn't it.
You know what I think they should do? I think, and I've had Peter Mark Richmond on twice. He's my favorite part of Jason Takes Manhattan. He played the professor, and he was a great guest. He's been on twice. But I think with all the people slamming Jason Takes Manhattan, I wouldn't mind seeing somebody reboot that movie and make the Jason Takes Manhattan that people didn't get.
Yeah, because I mean, I went to see Jason Takes Manhattan when it came out, and I was very much looking forward to it because the way that it was sold was really intriguing. Here's Jason in a big city, which has never been done before, and the possibilities are almost endless.
Yep.
And the movie, frankly, made me kind of angry because it was just so not that. It didn't make a whole lot of sense, and he only really reaches New York City at the very end of it, and the means by which he does it is just ludicrous, like the river that will go from Camp Crystal Lake to Manhattan somehow, and it's just so stupid that I mean, I should probably see it again because the kills and everything might have been interesting, but the whole premise was just so poorly done that it just made me hate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just...
I wouldn't mind seeing somebody remake that and just make the movie. I wouldn't even connect it with Part 7. Just make a standalone Jason in Manhattan movie. And because I'm surprised. Like, I keep hearing people reboot Friday the 13th. How about reboot Jason Takes Manhattan and make the movie that we didn't get?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, I mean, that's. I mean, many people have said it, but those are the movies that should be remade. The ones with really strong or intriguing premises, but executed poorly for one reason or another, either through lack of talent or lack of funds or what have you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I had Debbie Sue Voorhees on 3 times, and I've interviewed a lot of people from the Friday the 13th franchise, and of course, she's making 13 Fanboy, which is which is about a crazed fan going after alumni from the franchise and trying to off them. And she's in it. She's directing it. And Indiegogo, they were looking for $50K. They've got almost $100K now.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah, this movie's definitely being made, and she's got in. They just signed Dee Wallace to be the heroine in it.
Wow.
I believe there's talks to get one of the final girls, and I'm hoping it's Amy Steele from Part 2. Yeah. They've got Tom Matthews, they got C.J. Graham, they got Kane Hodder, they got Corey Feldman, they got Tracy Savage, they got Judy Aronson, and the people from Never Hike Alone. All she had to do was drop Tracy Savage's name, and I was in.
Yeah.
Big crush. Yep. She's got Ron Sloan and Carol Locatel. Of course, we're Junior and Ethel, and all kinds of interesting people that are set to be in this. And so I am on that movie as a co-producer, and I'm quite psyched about that. And I've interviewed a bunch of these people, so I'm on as a co-producer. And James Balsamo, I don't know if you know who he is, but he does really cheesy horror comedies like Cool as Hell and Hack Job and Bite School and Catch of the Day. And I had him on, and very funny guy. He had Tom Savini in Cool as Hell for like 10 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
He gets these people to appear in his movies, and he approaches them at conventions. And I get this message from him one night, and he asked me if I would shoot my own death scene and send it to him from my phone.
Oh, yeah.
And so I called him up. I was like, what's the context of this? He wanted it for Cool as Hell 2, which he's got Linnea Quigley in.
Right.
And a bunch of other people. And I'm like, okay, I'm not an actor, but I kept it under a minute. And I based on Linnea Quigley's cameo that I've seen, I was able to come up with something, and I sent it to him, and I was like, okay. And then he approaches me again, and he wants me to shoot 2 scenes on my phone and send it to him. He described what he wanted, and these scenes are supposed to be watched by Eric Roberts in the movie. So I'm like, okay, I'll do this. And I feel funny because I see the people he's had cameo in his movies, and I'm like, why me? And he just said he loved doing my show, and I'm like, okay.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. So that's been my movie page, but I can't act. So anybody listening, don't ask me to. I can do a tiny cameo is about the best I can do without screwing it up, you know. But
I'm sure it's going to be great, though.
Yeah, and going back to Friday the 13th, the final chapter is celebrating 35 years as well. Mm-hmm. So you guys might consider that. I've had Ted White on here, who's my favorite Jason.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned you've been at conventions before. Who have you met that you really enjoyed meeting?
Well, it's funny because when I do conventions, I very rarely meet anybody because I'm usually there as an exhibitor. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of stuck behind the counter. So I very rarely talk to anybody. The person I was, it's not a horror character, mm-hmm. but the person I've been the most excited to meet of all the years I've been going to conventions was Carol Spinney, who's Big Bird. You know?
Okay.
He was Big Bird and Oscar the Grouch from the beginning of Sesame Street until I think he officially retired only last year, the year before or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was probably the most excited to meet him. I was actually tongue-tied. Yeah, it was just, I don't know. He was such a nice guy and such a seminal part of my childhood and everything. And then before that, I was doing a Q&A with her and Chris. It was Mary Ann from Gilligan's Island. So non-horror people, but that's because, with Mary Ann, I told my daughter that I would get her autograph. Mm-hmm. And then it just sort of like I know a bunch about Gilligan's Island, so we ended up doing a panel. So neither one are horror people, but
that's fine.
The most excited people that I've met. But I've met a lot of people that are like super, super nice. And, Kane Hodder was very nice, very affable. Like a lot of people, geez, names are escaping me right now, but yeah, like Fred Williamson was super nice, who's in a lot of blaxploitation films. Mm-hmm. And he was really cool. Yeah, it's just Yeah, unfortunately, I rarely get to get up and go and meet these people because I'm just stuck. I'm stuck throughout the whole thing, and I'm stuck from when the show opens to when it finishes. And a lot of times with guests, they'll come in just as the show starts because all they have to do is lay out photos and things for them to sign, and then they're gone before the end. So I very rarely see anybody. Yeah.
Well,
The most affable person that I have met, a really friendly guy and just big gregarious personality, is Candyman, Tony Todd.
okay.
Yeah, but he used to come to my video store too, so I knew him from then. But yeah, his voice is just like the movie, so it's like this low, resonant kind of rumble of a voice, and every time you hear it, it's like, oh, it's Candyman, you know.
I think the person
about the audio.
Yeah. The person I was most excited to meet, of course, was Lisa Langlois, and she was the one that kind of got me out of my funk.
Yeah.
I loved her.
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect with Lisa, but yeah, she was super nice. But she probably didn't know what to expect from me either, because she didn't know me from Adam before. Yeah, Leslie was different. Leslie, when she did our first show, she came and, I try to make a point of going up to the guests and introducing who I am and tell them, if you need anything, let me know. And went up to Leslie, and I was about to say that, and she turned to me and said, are you Louis? And I said, yeah. And she mentioned a mutual friend, like this person says hi. And I just looked at her, and she said, you do know this person? I won't say her name. You do know this person? I said, yes. Do you know that person? It's like, yeah, she's a really good friend of mine. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool, So there's a nice mutual friend that we could kind of chat about with her, which was a surprise.
Well, Lisa, one of the things we did whenever I was in Toronto, because like I said, she was my eyes and ears of Toronto, so she showed me all the sights, and I went with her to get her photos done and carried her stuff, and she took me around to the locations where Class of 1984 was shot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a selfie of she and I in front of the house where they kidnapped Marilyn Ross. I sent Marilyn Ross a Facebook message and saying, we're outside your house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
for anyone coming to the show, the high school that Class of 1984 was shot, the exteriors, is just down the street from us.
Yeah, Lisa and I had her picture taken right in front of it too. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was fun. Now we didn't get a picture taken where the alleyway was, where they attacked Michael J. Fox and Aaron Noble, but
that's all the way downtown, I think.
Yeah, we found it. It was kind of blocked off, but due to the traffic, all she could do was point it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so you did a bit of a tour, because that alley isn't anywhere near the school.
Nope, no, it isn't. But no, Lisa made a point that we'd take a day, and we wanted to see the Black Christmas house too. And I remember we asked Lynn Griffin when we had lunch where that was, but we never did get to that yet.
Oh yeah.
But eventually, we'll do that. But no, I always make a point to hang out with Lisa when I go to Toronto, because she's become a friend through this. So, and that was fun.
So cool.
I've had a few guests that I've connected with personally too, like Nancy McLaughlin from Jason Lives. I'm connected with as well. So.
Oh yeah.
And Stefan Erngrim fairly well as well.
Yeah, it's always such a pleasant surprise when you meet these people,
mm-hmm.
and you genuinely get along with them. Like it's always really fun when that happens.
Last time I was in, actually no, it was last November when I was in for Horror-rama. I met up with Lisa, and one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to meet Neil Clifford, who played, of course, Fallon in Class of 1984. Now, he had such a bad experience on that film that you could ask him to do a convention, but I don't know whether he'll do it. I know
Yeah.
he wouldn't come on my show because experiences with like he wasn't allowed to go when his I think his daughter was born while shooting that movie, and wasn't allowed to leave the set. He left anyway, but
Yeah, I think you told me that. I had,
yeah,
or maybe it was Lisa. I can't remember who.
I think
But
it
yeah,
was
I
me.
heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it
she was
was
pretty
mentioned.
crummy.
Yeah, it was, well, I've had Lisa on twice, and I had Stefan Arngrim on 3 times here. So it was, between the two of them, it's come up more than once. But yeah, he wouldn't come on my podcast, but he was open to meeting me. So it was the first time Lisa had seen him since the movie wrapped, and it was kind of cool.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
pretty neat.
So we had a nice little sit down and reminisced about the movie, and he had good things to say. But I think there's and I'm not just speaking of Neil Clifford here. This is kind of mutual towards from a lot of the cast. I think Mark Lester was a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I
But
think when I had Lisa, I moderated her panel with Leslie as well, and yeah, they had a few things to say about different productions that they were in Canada, and it's really too bad that some people have such terrible experiences.
you guys screened a film, speaking of which, and I wasn't there the year for this, but I would love to see this film. It's Tax Shelter Terrors.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because back in the day, we used to have films made here, whether it be horror films or teen comedies like Porky's and stuff like that, that were strictly Canadian. I find it now, like Mean Girls and Deadpool and stuff like that, are shot up here, but they're American films, and to me that does not make any sense to me.
No, that's true. Yeah, that was back in, I believe, what was it? I think 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it? Or no, 2016. We screened that.
Yeah.
Because Diane Thorne was in, of course, a bunch of them, and yeah, like that was a surprise. Hopefully, they get distribution for that really soon. I think what we saw was a really fine cut of that documentary, and that was a real coup. Like that was amazing, because we even had I think a relative of one of the producers show up with a whole bunch of stuff that he was just selling out like posters and ad mats and one sheets and stuff like that of various productions that his family was involved in. It was a great moment for us.
Yeah, and
And
we've
as
had.
far as I know, I don't know if it's been shown anywhere else. I could be wrong, but
Well, I've tried to get in contact with somebody, with the directors or whatever, to come on here and talk about it, because this sounds like something down memory lane. Because I mean, I grew up with. I had an uncle that used to own a video store back in the '80s, so I grew up. That was where I first saw Class of 1984 and Lisa. So
oh yeah,
yeah, so. But I grew up with a lot of these movies, and Canada had a lot of horror films, and we still get the Trailer Park Boys, which are not horror, well, depending on how you look at it. but I gotta say, I love the concept of this, but I wish Canada would reclaim. And I think it's because I've heard the government won't support the arts, but I think that we need to reclaim our movies.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people felt that that tax shelter. Well, the idea was that it was supposed to create and promote Canadian cultural identity and stuff, and what ended up being made was a lot of horror and exploitation, which I guess to the general populace they don't see as having intrinsic social redeeming values, but they do, and and the truth of the matter is it resulted in a lot of people starting out their career or bolstering their careers and having a lot of movies made, and that was the focus of it. And not only that, but having all these movies made and actually generating profit. They weren't just making navel gazing experimental films, which I mean I like experimental films too, but these are much more populist. They went out into the world. They have followings to this day. They're not forgotten. I think it fulfilled its mandate really, really well. And it's too bad that they stopped it, because if they hadn't, who knows how many more of these really cool films and careers would have been launched.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's great. Horror films are a good way to start. Like, what are we supposed to watch? These stupid Pureflix movies? Like, I'm sorry, but when I look at something unplanned and it's written by two guys telling women what to do with their bodies, I'm sorry. I got no time for that junk.
Yeah.
Yep. No, but I did want to mention you do Suspect Video.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about Suspect Video.
What I'm doing now, or what it was?
Well, talk about what the origination of it is, and what makes it, like, talk about it, like, basically plug it, but give us some detail about what it is, and let's draw some people to your store.
Well, I had a physical store. I don't anymore. It closed in, I believe, 2017, because we were located. At one point, it's funny, we had two physical stores in Toronto, and one closed in 2008 because there was a massive fire that destroyed several buildings downtown, and that was part of it. And then I closed 2017 because we were part of Honest Ed's street there, and they went through a massive renovation. And in both cases, rents in Toronto are just astronomically high, so it's really hard to have a store, especially one as kind of idiosyncratic as ours was. It was primarily a rental store, but we carried a lot of stuff for sale too. Movies, books, toys, magazines, and the focus of all the stuff that we sold was all horror and exploitation, which is my personal interest. Well, we would carry tons and tons of stuff for sale. For rental as well, but we would carry everything. But our horror section was enormous, if I can say that. And we opened it because it was me and my partner, and we were both film graduates, and we wanted to make our own film, but raising money for a film was very difficult, and so it was much easier endeavor to raise money to open a store, a rental store. Mm-hmm. Which we felt would give us access to distribution, and then we could make films, and we would already know the distributors. Of course, the store really took off and became a big cultural hub, and that took up all our time. So we never did make any movies, but we did manage to get a lot of stuff. We were almost like YouTube before YouTube. Because we would go through magazines and order catalogs and get all kinds of transfers from all over the world. We were always looking for uncut stuff that was unreleased in North America, just anything that was weird, odd, or unique. Plus, Hollywood stuff, but only Hollywood stuff that we felt was interesting. And so it was a very carefully curated store where you could go to, and we would always have a reason why we carried things. Now, whether you agreed with that reason or not was up to you, but it would always be stuff that, we would look through somebody's personal catalog who's selling a tape of something, and we'd read the synopsis and we'd think, oh my God, we have to get that. It was just craziest stuff. And that's continued on. Now I just do it online. So what I do is I post stuff and I just sell things, and I'll ship throughout Canada. And if you're in Toronto, you can do a free pickup. But I'll post and put on our pre-order sites stuff that's coming out, everything from horror exploitation, Blu-rays and DVDs, but also the coolest horror figures or cult figures and books and magazines. And you can, we get stuff like the new Fangoria magazine, which is nobody carries, no newsstand carries it, and it's hard to get. You can only get it online or through us. We've gone direct with people like Vinegar Syndrome, so we can get the slipcase editions that they release, and you can actually order it from Canada if you're from Canada. And so you don't have to mess with customs and things like that, and price difference. And yeah, so we really try to keep up on what's cool and interesting coming out. And you can order stuff from us, and we have a podcast as well on the site. And
oh, nice.
It's me and one of the guys that worked at the store, and we'll pick a topic and just talk about it. It could be, Saturday morning cartoons from the 70s.
Do you have these in a database somewhere where I could listen to them?
Right now it's just on our site, although we've been told many times, why don't you put it on a feed so that, I can download it and listen to it.
Yeah, I put mine on YouTube, so...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And people download it and listen to it that way?
Well, I put my interviews all on YouTube, and I don't break them up. I put the whole interview on. So, Bruce Glover's 3 hours. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He talked. Hopefully people are interested in what we have to say right now. That's listen.
Yeah. Oh, I'm interested in what you're saying. So,
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't have approached you if I didn't think you had something to talk about.
Oh, that's good.
Yep.
Yeah, right now it's just on suspectvideo.ca. But,
Okay.
I should put it up on YouTube. I'm thinking about it. And if I can convince the other guy, we'll even have like short little videos too. But he's very, I don't know, he's a character. He's not sure if he wants his image out there, but
oh, come on. Are you talking about the guy that was with you when I was...
Yeah. See, he knows his stuff. His name is Glenn, and he knows his stuff. He's I think he speaks really well, and
he was there with you every year I went, so...
Yeah, he's really fun, so hopefully I can convince him. But I should put the podcast on there. I do use clips of music, so I'm wondering what YouTube's parameters.
Yeah, you might want to be careful with that.
Yeah, it's only like little bits. I never play a whole song.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that falls under the fair use rule.
Yeah, I don't get that
purposes.
Sometimes.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. I can always put it up, and if they take it, they take it. If they don't, they don't, I guess.
Well, if you get it on your site, then at least it's somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell me, what's some of the most unique stuff you sell on there? I like figurines. I wish they'd do a Miss 45 figurine. I'd like that.
Yeah, they should do that. Yeah.
Or there is. What's that?
They do release some interesting ones. There's going to be a Laurie Strode figure coming out.
Nice.
Of the new Halloween.
Okay.
I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's always some cool stuff coming out. You never know what will be available, but and I'm always adding to it. Like I will be this year adding a whole bunch of VHS to it, which I just have to go through what I've got. I have like boxes and boxes of it.
Okay.
I'm going to be adding a lot of comic books too. A lot of collectible, a lot of print stuff. And the best things are the pre-order pages, I think, because you can actually purchase before it comes out and reserve your items. Because a lot, especially with figures, they'll make an initial run and then they're gone and you can't get them back. And it's they seem to just make numbers to order because they'll go out of print almost immediately. I'll do a pre-order and I'll order the number that has been ordered already and a certain amount afterwards, and then I'm a lot of times surprised when I sell out within a week or 2 weeks and I try to reorder and they're gone.
Well, you're into the horror films. Tell me what was got you into horror films? Was there a particular film that opened up that to you?
I don't know. I've tried to to narrow it down, I've always been into like horror and fantasy. The probably the film that most affected me when I was a kid was a Trilogy of Terror.
Okay.
Because when I was a kid, I saw it, and it was, of course, the Zuni fetish sequence in it, and I had nightmares. I had sleepless nights after that, and you would think that would, drive me away from horror, but it didn't. But ever since I was a little kid, there's no specific moment, but I've always been into it. Like even when I was reading comic books as a really young kid. I mean, I obviously like the superhero stuff, but I really gravitated towards all the monster comics. All the Werewolf by Night and Monster Frankenstein and all of that, and even the nondescript Jack Kirby monsters. Like I've always had this affinity for these things, and I have no idea where it started from, because none of my family was into that at all, like zero. But it was always there for me.
I remember,
like even with Saturday morning cartoons, like I would watch everything, obviously, but I would really like the ones that had monsters in it. It was just always there.
One story I often share on here is that my cousins baited my brothers and I into watching Friday the 13th Part 2. And I was just a young teen, and it was the first time I'd seen a naked woman, so thank you, Kirsten Baker.
Yeah.
And that was the moment that my mom came in and shut the television off.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They have VHS of that there, but they eventually snuck it back in, and I remember getting driven home, and it was like traumatic for me, because it's like, of course, Jason lives at the end of it, and it's like, oh my goodness, because I wanted to see him I always wanted to see the villain get his comeuppance, and obviously that didn't happen. And I was really afraid of horror films. And my older brother baited me into watching Friday the 13th, the final chapter, because Jason died in it. And technically he was right. And I guess the final chapter was kind of like, well, they killed him off. Of course, he came back.
Yeah.
But I guess after that, that's like, evil got vanquished, and I just kind of came out of my shell on it.
True. Yeah.
But nonetheless, do you get any favorite horror films?
Oh yeah, like a whole bunch. When I had the store, I was constantly asked what my favorite horror film was, and that's just an impossible question to answer. It really depends on so many factors. But some of my favorites are, I know a lot of people malign it, but Evil Dead 2. I absolutely love. Return of the Living Dead, The Shining, was it Night of the Living Dead, the original, Dawn of the Dead. God, I could just list so many. I mean, so many of them just have such resonance to me, and I think are just masterpieces. And then there's all the guilty pleasures, stuff like The Car, or or Razorback, or Class of 1999, and like films that aren't necessarily great, but just really stay with you. I mean, The Thing is a masterpiece too, and even Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola film, I really love a lot. Like there's so many that I really love. Like Creepshow is always there for me, and I don't know. There's just so many.
Well, you know what? Next year, when we celebrate 2020 Horror-rama, I'll have you back on and we'll reminisce again. But I think what we'll do next year is we'll do a top 10 favorite horror/exploitation films.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll just go down our list, and that should be a fun conversation. And then we'll also plug the next Horror-rama and reminisce about what happens at this year's Horror-rama. So love to have you back on.
Yeah, I'd love it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to soon here let you go because I'm pretty sure you got a day planned, but I'm really happy to have you come on here, and nice to see you at Comic-Con.
Yeah, that was a good treat for me too.
Yeah, but graduation day from you guys gave you guys a little bit of business. I came away with like 7 bags of stuff. Oh, gee, they had a booth of wrestling there, and I must have bought about a dozen of those rubber wrestling action figures.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness, you could throw them around, they wouldn't break.
Yeah.
I think they should still make those. It's like
They should. I don't know why they don't. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, they were great. I must have a good 40 of them home, and I got them from flea markets and stuff. But jeepers, I bought a lot while I was just in there at Comic-Con, and hope I see more at some of these booths. But yeah, I bought a lot of stuff. I got a Michael Myers figurine and someone from Clerks and stuff like that.
Wow.
A lot of good stuff. A Clockwork Orange figurine of Alex. So I love getting little collectibles of that and just decorating my flat, you know.
Oh yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It was great having you come on here today. And just before you go, I would love to have you do a plug for my show.
Sure, yeah. Hi, this is Luis Ceriz, and I am co-creator and runner of Horror-rama in Toronto, a yearly horror fest. Plus, I own SuspectVideo.ca, Canada's best cult online video store. And I'm listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise from New Brunswick, Canada.
Yes. Have you been up this way before?
I have, yeah. Me and my wife did a kind of like a road trip up the East Coast. We went all the way up to the Cabot Trail and back, and tried to explore as much as we could, going all around. And yeah, we thought it was great. It was a great trip.
Yeah.
We loved New Brunswick. Yeah.
Did you ever meet the Trailer Park Boys?
No. This was before the Trailer Park Boys. This was probably in, I think, 1999.
Well, you know what? Rob Wells was in Hobo with a Shotgun. That's horror related.
That's true. Yeah, I wasn't crazy about horror with Hobo with a Shotgun. Were you?
You know, when I first saw it, I hated it, but it kind of grew on me.
Yeah, maybe I should see it again. It was just, I don't know, like it was, didn't do much for me. I wanted to like it, you know, like I like a lot about it.
I just think it's interesting they got Rutger Hauer and Rob Wells in the same movie.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, Rutger Hauer is great.
Yeah.
Whatever he does. But yeah, like it just, I don't know. I should maybe see it again.
Yeah, it was kind of like that with me too, you know. I didn't like it first time. Second time it was kind of like, okay, they shot that in, I think, Halifax, so.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. I mean, with some movies it's like that. It's funny with John Carpenter films particularly, when I first see them, not all of them. I mean, some are immediately amazing to me. But with a few of them, I watch them and I think, it's okay. But then it's like I revisit them and I think, holy crap, I really missed a lot of this. Like, this is great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's something about it, the way he shoots, or, yeah, I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to getting a VIP. I'm going to get VIP for Horror-rama 2019. And I recommend, you guys stick with the late November, early December.
I think it'll work.
Well, here's the thing. John Dugan, I know, had said he was doing a horror convention right around that time, so he wouldn't have been able to do Horror-rama, but something like this might make it happen now. I don't know.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're not competing with other conventions. That gives you a little bit of favor.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I think, to me, it's a great way to end the year, too. So I'd recommend you stay with that. If it works out, go with it.
Yeah.
I love the new time for it.
Oh, excellent.
Well, I'll be seeing you. I look forward to it this fall. I'm definitely going to promote it and advertise it. And it was fantastic having you on here. So we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. You take care and you have yourself a wonderful day.
Oh, you too.
All right. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.